This is what you have been taught. We don't have anything called dhimmitude in academia. It doesn't exist.
In Islam?
No. Dhimmitude is a term coined by an Islamophobe called Bat Yor, a Zionist woman who had an agenda to tarnish Islam. She wrote a book, or few books, actually 3 books, on Islamic history, and what she did was she selectively chose passages from the Muslim texts to paint Islam as a barbaric faith. Okay? For example, if a Mughal emperor committed a genocide somewhere, that's attributed to Islam. If the Mongols, having become Muslims, never left their ways, they massacre someone, that massacre is actually attributed to Islam. This is what this woman did, and she coined the term dhimmitude. Okay, what we have is called dhimma contract. It's not called dhimmitude. Dhimmitude is an anglicized term. It's a derogatory term. It's not a serious academic term. What the academics, you go to any academic work written by non-Muslims, people who are serious scholars, they will never use this term, dhimmitude. This is only the Christian missionaries, Christian activists, to demonstrate their academic capacity, they use these kind of terms. Okay. So Ahl Dhimma is the contract between Muslims and non-Muslims. Sure. What is this contract? The non-Muslims, they pay jizya, just like the Muslims pay zakat. Muslims pay a tax, non-Muslims pay a tax.
And what's the rate of jizya?
Rate of jizya is for a rich person, someone who is rich, okay, is 1 gold coin per year.
Okay.
1 gold coin per year. For middle class people, it's 48 silver coins. For poor people, it is 12 silver coins a year. Okay, and beggars, priests, women, children, elderly are all exempt. Okay. Jizya is charged from working class people. Okay, people who are working. If you're not working, no jizya. Okay?
No problem. What I understood is that it was
someone who's poor doesn't have to pay jizya. Okay? So, likewise, zakat, which is the Muslim tax, Muslims have to pay 2.5%. The non-Muslims do not pay a percentage. Muslims do. So if I have £1 million in my account, for example, in a Muslim state, I'm a Muslim, I pay £25,000 every year to the state. If a Jewish man has £1 million in his account, he pays, what's 4 grams, how much is a gram of gold? 30 pounds. 30 into 4, how much is that? 120 pounds. Is that fair? I pay 25,000 pounds, and a Jewish man pays 120 pounds. For £1 million. For £1 million. So this is I'm not sanitizing Islam here for you. This is what it is. Well, go and read the sources. Go and read the early. I can give you references.
I'm not nodding my head. I'm not listening to what you're saying. Not necessarily either assenting or disagreeing with what you're saying. Just that, I'm just nodding my head to listen to what you're saying. As I understood it, what's called the Dhimmi contract. Is that correct?
It's Dhimma contract.
Dhimma contract.
Ahad. It's called Ahad in Arabic, which is a contract.
Okay.
An agreement.
Okay. Yeah. As I understood it, and I might be wrong, so I'm just going. It was actually quite the tax on people under the contract is regressive. It gradually pushes them down financially as the years progress. Because notwithstanding what you just said about what tax rates are.
In what sense it pushes them down? In what sense?
Because ultimately it's taking out more than they can afford. Ultimately, as the years progress,
no one can increase the cost.
I'd have to look at the contract.
I can give you reference sources. Go to Al-Baladuri, one of the earliest histories of Islam. It's called Futuh al-Buldan. Okay, the conquest of lands. Literally, it's called the conquest of lands. And there are plenty of documents put by Baladuri, who's the scholar who wrote the book. And in these documents, you get the terms. You see the terms. What were the terms they agreed to? And in each and every single treaty, you will find the amount is 1 dinar. 1 dinar is 1 gold coin, which is 4.25 in weight, grams in weight. 4.25 grams in weight. Okay, so literally, what could you buy from a dinar in the time of the Prophet? At that time, a goat, a sheep. Okay, a goat. So if you have a herd of goats and you're a non-Muslim, every year you either pay in kind or you can give 1 gold coin to the state.
Was it an income tax or a wealth tax?
Which
was it? Which was it? Was it a wealth? Sorry, was it an income tax based on your income or upon your wealth, or both?
It is not income. In both cases, with the Muslims and the non-Muslims, it's not an income tax. Income tax has a different system. You know, you pay what you earn, right? You pay based upon your earnings, but that's not the case here. You only pay based upon your capacity to pay. Okay. For example, Jews. If you're a rich Jew, you pay 1 gold coin. If you're a middle class Christian, you pay 48 silver coins. Okay. If you are a poor, a laborer, whether you're Christian or Hindu, you pay 12 coins, silver coins. Okay, which is like literally less than 10 pounds. Okay, a year. By the way, this is a year. So this is a huge misconception that jizya broke people's backs. Okay, it may be so in some cases where rulers went out of their limits and they started to impose heavy amounts. And in fact, we have examples where scholars stood up for the people. Okay, we have, for example, the Mamluk ruler, Baybars, who was fighting against the Mongols. And he wanted to tax his people. He wanted to raise the taxes so that he can fight the Mongol effectively. It was a fair demand because these people were facing extinction at the hands of the Mongols, right? But the scholar Imam Nawawi in Damascus, he failed, or he refused to sign the document, to give fatwa. You know, fatwa is the ruling.
Yes, ruling.
Yeah, go and give. And the ruler asked him, why would you refuse? He said, your slaves, your servants, he's talking to the king, the sultan, that your servants have gold and silver on their sword cases and their clothes. Take that off, melt it, use it for your purpose. Once that is finished, I'll give you the fatwa. Then you can tax the people. Because it was an exceptional circumstance, right? Where people needed a lot of money to fight the Mongols. Okay. Even then, the scholars of Islam did not allow rulers to abuse their power. But there were cases where they did abuse their power. But that cannot be attributed to Islam. Islam is clear. This is the amount. You cannot charge any more than that, period. Okay.
We're going back, I mean, obviously we've gone off topic a little bit. Going back to the original point about Islam being sort of politics and religion in one as one, mosque and state as one, if you like, put it that way.
So this rule applies to Muslims. It doesn't apply to Jews and Christians.
Okay. But going back to the point of apostasy, that being a political act, it just seems sort of strange to me that if Islam is the truth and then empowered by God, that it would need humans.
No, you're looking at Islam from a Christian lens. Okay,
of course,
you need to stop looking. Okay, you need to stop looking at Islam from a Christian lens because Islam is not Christianity.
Absolutely agree. Well,
Islam is a political faith. This is what you have to understand.
Already mentioned that.
In a political system, when you leave the system publicly, announcing it, you are instigating a rebellion, possibly a revolt, or whether it's minor or major. It depends on the country you're in or the culture you're in. Okay, so when you leave a political system, a political group publicly, you are instigating, by extension, possibly a revolt. Not in all cases. I am willing to accept. Not in all. It may not happen in all cases. But this system is there. I'll give you an example why the law came into the first place. Why the law came into being in the first place.
What do you mean? Sharia law?
No, this particular point. Apostasy. At the time of the Prophet, people were joining Islam with an intention to apostatize. A few days later, to instigate more apostasy.
Right.
Do you understand?
I do understand. Why would they be doing that?
They did that. This is historical. People did that.
You understand people converting to Islam as a conversion of convenience?
Because this was a political community. You know, their religion was their politics. So they were being persecuted because of their politics and religion. Okay. Because the religion is politics, they're being persecuted for both.
But that makes no sense what you're saying. People converting to Islam just with a view to going to sort of renouncing it a couple of days later, I guess with a view to sort of defame.
So that's why to avoid people from using Islam as a vehicle to cause revolts or rebellions, this rule came down. This rule was established.
Using Islam to revolt against Islam, because you already said Islam and politics is one, basically. So Islam is one. So you're saying that people are converting to Islam, into the Islamic State at the time, with a view then to maybe a month later, whatever, to go and say, I'm not a Muslim anymore. I don't like it. And then you're trying to encourage, because there are already some wavering hearts around. Okay, so it's trying to instigate a rebellion. Or possibly, because when people leave
there is a problem. It weakens the community.
Okay.
So to stop this from happening, the law was established.
Okay, well,
so this is the view. You don't have to agree with it.
No, I don't.
Being a Christian, you are heavily influenced by liberalism. Okay. Because Christian,
I try to throw the shackles
because
off. But there we go. Yes.
If Calvin was speaking to me in your place today, from the 16th century, he would agree with me. He would absolutely appreciate my point.
I'm well aware
because
that
Calvin himself
tried to set up theocracy.
Yeah.
And why does he stop it? Because he tried to set it up. What was his reason for stopping it? That's an interesting point. Why did he try to stop it?
The point I'm making is that Christianity has evolved.
But you've not answered my question about Calvin. Why then?
Politically,
you've grasped hold of the fact that Calvin didn't try to institute theocracy. You grasped hold of that. But what you have not grasped hold of.
But how did he justify his theocracy?
He went straight to the Bible, saying this is what's in the Old Testament, and his reasoning was.
And you don't agree with him?
No, definitely not.
Okay, but most Christians at the time, they agreed with him. His domain in Geneva. Around it,
because their reasoning would be completely inconsistent with what the New Testament is saying. Even with
the reason you have the view you have today is because of the Enlightenment.
Absolutely no way. Bunkum.
So I'll
tell you why.
Okay, I ask you a question. Why were the Enlightenment philosophers arguing vehemently against any role of the church in the state affairs?
They wanted basically the Enlightenment. Many of them were coming from a more agnostic, even atheistic bent.
You missed my point.
I'm trying to answer what you said. If you think I'm wrong, then you can argue. They wanted to be the ones in power. They wanted to be the ones with the philosophical power in the state. So, as opposed to having sort of vaguely, what they consider to be a vaguely theocratic state, they wanted to be more an atheist. They wouldn't necessarily use these words. They wanted a more atheistic state.
Atheistic approach. That's not true. That's not true for all of them.
No, of course not.
There were Christian philosophers who were arguing for secularism.
Yes.
Okay. Now, why would they argue in this way? Because the church is already.
Because they're already the excesses of what church.
Religion is already politicized, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It should never be.
So, but
from the time of Constantine, the church was often
Christianity has always been a political player throughout the Christian history.
From the time of Constantine, yes, it became a state religion. Which
I'm saying from the time of Constantine up to the 18th century, Christianity had been.
That is an absolute anathema. It should not be part of the religion.
But that's the point. You are saying. I believe you're saying this now in the 21st century because you had the Enlightenment.
You don't have to do that. That's what the Bible says. I don't have to go watch the Enlightenment.
No,
I agree with what
Bible.
Adnan, I agree with many of the Enlightenment philosophers. I have no problem with what many of them are saying. I disagree with a lot of what they say. But on this particular issues, I agree. Church and state, religion and state, whether it's Islam and state or Christianity and state or whatever, always leads to coercion and corruption. The use of violence and force to force belief on people, basically. Using fear to stop people from moving away or challenging what you believe.
So what makes if there's a Christian state, there are Christians living in a state.
Yes.
What law do they use to govern themselves?
Well, are you talking about democratic states, second arguments?
Yeah, in a democratic state. You'd vote somewhere like Britain, for example.
Yeah, sure. Okay, you would vote whichever party felt represented your views the best, or at least whichever party was least worse to what you believe.
Okay. You and I know that this country is not a Christian country.
Absolutely.
The majority of British people, I don't know what it says in census, I don't know what...
It doesn't matter, it's not a Christian country.
It's head of state is a Christian, of course, and most people in this country self-identify as Christians. So let's debate here. Most people would say it is a Christian country. Head of state is a Christian, and it's...
But like CLV, basically.
It's not a Buddhist society or a Muslim society. No. So I think you can say it's a Christian country in that officially our head of state is a head of the church. So the point, most people call themselves Christians in this country.
So the point I was going to make, was
I wouldn't necessarily agree with
that in a secular state like this, if the parliament passes a law, for example, okay, that we burn people alive for drinking, for example.
Yes.
Okay, and Parliament agrees. Democratically, the law has been passed.
Yes.
Okay, what do the Christians do in that case?
Well,
and the Parliament is...
God willing, they would be up to say this is absolutely wrong. This lacks any,
but they can use the Bible
lacks any kind of mercy to do that. I mean, it doesn't seem really the right way forwards. I can give you other examples, even the way society's going at the moment.
But what if they use the Bible?
I can even look at using an example now today, the way that society's going. For instance, with things like same-sex marriage, or
exactly, that's a good example.
Or the use of armed forces as to going into other countries.
But the church has jumped on the bandwagon. We have Anglican priests who are actually
exactly, and that proves my point. I'd argue it proves my point. They're going astray because as soon as you have religion and state together, that religion will always use the forces of the state, the tools of the state, which would be the police, the army, the law, prisons, all other methods of state coercion to enhance its position.
That's the problem I'm highlighting.
The Church of England has actually said about its priests they cannot marry like that. So this is in violation of the Church of England's own teaching. This is not an example of church-state relationship. It's an example of disobedience to the explicit teaching of the Church of England, which is that ministers and vicars cannot marry each other.
Okay.
Now that these two guys are actually standing for election to General Synod,
I know.
and it's going to create a big problem. If they are elected, the Archbishop of Canterbury is going to have to deal with members of Synod who are in violation of their own rules. This is not an example of the Church of England are teaching something dodgy. It's a disciplinary problem. So it's not quite the same thing as saying, they're just giving in. They have a line. They need to hold it. That's the issue.
Yeah, I mean, you came in a little bit later. I mean, so what I was saying was, we might have missed it, and I don't know whether you agree or not. But what I'm saying is the whole idea of church and state, for me as Christian, is anathema, basically.
Since when? That's the issue.
Well, since
the point I'm raising here is for the first 18 centuries.
I mean, where did Jesus say, "Go kill in my name"? Go slaughter Muslims or Jews in my name?
Okay, fine. Let's assume he didn't say that.
Let's assume he did.
Yeah, fine, no problem. The point I'm making is, for the first 18th century, up to the 18th century, Christian world was governed by a very politicized group called the church. Okay? And the Enlightenment philosophers, this is the problem they had. They had atheists among them, they had Christians, they had Unitarians, they had Trinitarians. They were arguing. Some were arguing tolerance, others saying, okay, we need to separate the church and the state so that we can have more tolerance, we can have more freedom. We understand that. Okay. I'm saying your view is their view. Your view is only 2 centuries old. Okay. Prior to this phenomenon, prior to this occurrence in the 18th century, the Christians were pretty much unanimous that the church is political, let it be political. Okay. I'm
a product of this society.
So your view is only complete separation of the church and the state.
I mean, I'm a product of British society. I've been brought up in Britain.
Exactly.
British education system.
Liberalism.
Exactly. But that doesn't necessarily run that often runs counter to Christianity, and therefore when it does that, it's a case of actually either resisting that or disobeying that, and worse still, the more insidious forms where it's more subtle, where it's close enough and you just sort of go along with it, and it becomes difficult where, for instance, there's a good law being brought in, it's just going to bring in a good form of morality.
Isn't it better to have God's law? Okay.
Yes, of course.
God's law is there in the Old Testament.
But that law is not. It's for the Jews. It's not for the Gentiles. That's one of the early arguments.
Fine. I understand the Christian argument. I understand your argument on that point. Okay. My issue is, why would you have men making laws for you and making blunders at the same time and ignoring God's law at the same time, even though it was for the Jews? It is godly. You believe it is godly. It is there in the Bible, right? Yes. The Old Testament law.
Okay. But what's our mandate, or what's our commission as a Christian? As far as I understand it, my own simple understanding is to go and make converts of all people, to share the gospel with people, and bring people to faith in Christ. Right. That's my mandate. What my mandate is not is to become a politician and try and enforce that religious view on people. Where it gets interesting, or a little bit more grey area, is, for instance, if I was a politician, for sake of argument, and and I was trying to legislate against something which is clearly evil. I'll give you an example. I'm just saying one of which we will agree on. I mean, sort of like abortion. Yeah, exactly. It's a good example. Or what's the other one where? Sorry, I had a mind blank. Where they tweak and play with the embryo. What's it called?
Test tube babies.
That kind of thing, basically.
Or cloning.
Yeah, exactly.
Human cloning.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That is obviously clearly wrong. So. Yes, I would vote against it if I could. But even that's quite interesting. That's already a slippery slope, leading, it's insidiously leading me into a state system, trying to use the state to impose.
But you see, the Christian world of Christendom has a problem. It has a huge problem. You have two choices. One is secular law, made by men, right? The other is the biblical law, which is, if you applied it today, it would be, at the least, it would be barbaric, right?
There are people who will be screaming about some of the.
Yeah, you would have people burning. You would have.
Capital punishments, corporal punishments.
No, there is burning in the Old Testament.
Well, that's capital punishments. But we should not be bringing that in. I mean, it's.
But then you choose man-made law.
Well, yeah, basically, yes. I've got no problem with that. It's not my role as a Christian to use the rule of law.
You don't think it's a dilemma?
I think it's an element of dilemma. Yeah, sure. I think
why did God leave you with a dilemma then? We the Muslims, we have a law. We have the Qur'an.
Okay.
We have the
now what's technically happening is just like a bit earlier. You were saying, you're looking through Islam through a Christian lens.
Exactly.
Now it's vice versa. You're doing the same thing back. You're doing the same thing back.
No. I'm willing
That's your prerogative.
I accept your view. I'm not saying you have to be like Muslims.
No.
I'm saying your view is inconsistent with your belief.
Why do you say that? Why is it inconsistent? What's your ground for saying that?
Because your belief, at the least, dictates that you must make God the center of your life.
Sorry,
right? You must make God the center of your life.
Yes.
That's the basic. I mean, we all agree on that.
So far, so good. No problem with that.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay. So, when it comes to politics, you take God away. When it comes to you take God into consideration. When it comes to everything in your life, your prayer, your living, your life.
There is an answer. There's an answer for this for you, which we've overlooked, and that is biblically in terms of Paul.
Yes.
He says there is an answer to this problem. Now it's not the answer you've given, but it's a different answer. Paul says this. Now imagine Paul was writing in the 60s AD. Yep. Probably Nero was the emperor in Rome. Not the most liberal statesman. Controversial here. A touch bloody, a touch mad, but nevertheless, this is what Paul says about him and the whole Roman apparatus, okay? That every person be subject to these governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God. And these authorities that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists this authority opposes God. So for Paul at least, there was a whole complex political apparatus. It's called the Roman Empire, including Nero, including the whole system. So it's not that...
Give to Caesar what is Caesar's and all of that.
Precisely. So there is actually an answer. The thing is, of course, is that no Christian today that I'm aware of, very few, perhaps on the loony fringe in America, actually want to see the Roman Empire reinstituted and have an emperor. but nevertheless, at that time, there was a political system. And also, the other issue was the reason why New Testament's really got on about this is because the New Testament writers didn't think the world was going to last very long. Paul thought the end was very near.
Simple endurance,
so there was no political program put in place, unlike in Islam, where there is actually a program, because we're not expecting the world to end within the lifetime of Muhammad, which is what Jesus apparently said in Mark 13, when this generation will see the second coming and the end of the world. So there was no perceived need to have a political program, and that is, if you like, an intrinsic weakness of Christianity, which has had to deal with an ongoing historical reality for thousands of years. So it's not equipped for that. It's not made for that.
So I think what Paul was saying about Paul, it's actually quite good about sort of praying for those in authority and obeying those in authority. Even as an example, Nero, who was pretty vile individual by any stretch of imagination.
Persecuted Christians. It's ironic. He persecuted Christians, and Paul is saying, do not resist this guy. He's instituted by God. I mean, explain that to me. I don't understand that.
Well, first of all, you can praying for his salvation. But first of all,
you've got to obey that. The authority you have is instituted by God. Therefore,
if I was Paul, I would have said the same thing. But if I was Paul, I would have said the same thing. If there is military might in front of you, and you are a bunch of people, 50 people, for example, 20 people, and you want to fight China, you want to fight Russia, you want to fight big powers in the world, I would tell them, Stay put, avoid this fight, obey the authorities, go with the flow, continue with your preaching, be passive, because you're going to be massacred. You will be killed. If I was Paul, I would have said the same thing. And our scholars,
there's a whole
Paul is saying obey.
The whole thing is instituted by God himself. Therefore, not because...
Well, this is what the Salafi scholars... I mean, look, this is exactly what the Salafi scholars are saying. Rulers today have been instituted by God.
Right.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. This is your destiny.
Yes.
Okay, this is God's decree. So submit to it. Yeah. So there are scholars. We have this wisdom alive to this day. It is there.
Yeah.
It has been around since the inception of humanity. Yeah.
And so I'd argue all the pastoral lessons basically with Paul regarding most of the churches were under an
persecution,
anti-Christian, basically an anti-Christian state for the sake of arguments. As you get a complete picture.
But no, my question is, what happened in the 4th century when the empire becomes Christian?
Supposedly Christian.
Have you read Theodosian Code?
No, I haven't. I don't even know the chance.
Have you read those clauses?
That's after Constantine. Constantine didn't make Christianity the official religion. That's a mistake.
No.
What he did was...
I'm not talking about Constantine. I'm talking about Theodosius.
Okay, when he made it compulsory.
Theodosian Code was devised in the 5th century.
Yes.
Okay. In its final form.
Yes.
Okay. It has clear clauses that one cannot be anything but a Christian. You will be killed. You'll be killed.
That's anathema.
That's the point. You see, Paul, what happened? Look, Paul said this. I understand. Paul said that at that time. There were thousands of Christian scholars, church fathers. Call them later or earlier. Okay. They knew Greek. They knew Latin. They knew what they were reading, and they even wrote commentaries. People like Jerome, people like Augustine, people like Gregory of Nazianzus, Gregory of Nyssa. All these people were writing commentary. They understood what Paul had written, right? And still, they are the ones who supported people like Theodosius and those who came after him. And then came the Code of Justinian. Okay,
and so wrong to do so.
But how can you 21st century all of them for the last 18 centuries?
Look at the Protestant movement, where you had supposed Christians persecuting other Christians because they weren't in the denomination. That gives you a prime example of why church and state should not be. It's an anathema.
I think it was a huge mess.
It's an anathema.
Christians were left without any political, as he pointed out, Christians were left without any political guidance. They were left without any guidance.
What was Jesus' mandate? What was Jesus' mandate before he ascended to heaven? What was his mandate?
Well, according to the 4th century conception of Jesus' mandate, according to the 4th century conception, because there was. You see, if you're talking about,
stay focused on. We can bring too many things in.
No.
Just stick with what
New Testament. We're talking about New Testament. New Testament. Believe me or not, believe me, this may come as a shock to you. The New Testament as a document didn't exist up to the 4th century.
I know that.
Until the 4th. So what happened to the first 3 centuries?
Well, we're changing.
What happens to those Christians?
Stop.
What happened to the mandate of
Adnan? We're going completely off topic. We're talking about church and states.
It's a very interesting topic. It's a very interesting topic, even if it is on topic.
I'm sorry, but it's interesting to discuss. Yes, but it's religion.
You talked about conception. You talked about mandate. Jesus' mandate, right?
Yes.
Okay,
So
I'm asking.
If we start bringing, sorry. What I'm saying is,
the very point I'm making. The very point I'm making is that this mandate has been evolving for the past 2,000 years. This very mandate you're talking about, this is exactly what I'm saying. The crux of my point.
I have to disagree with that. I disagree with that.
The reason why I use the political argument is to make this very point, that this very mandate has been evolving. Well, the fact that any Tom, Dick and Harry can come in history and argue his case biblically and break away from the tradition again and again.
There's a very simple answer. It might be a little bit simplistic. Look at whenever the church and state have become one, like the excesses of the Roman Catholic Church or even many of the Protestant denominations. Whenever that occurs, were they being godly? Were they being Christ-like? No, they were not. When the church has been strongest in many ways, it's also, ironically, when it's been weakest. I'll give you an example, modern-day example today. And the last century, the underground church in China. Was it a state church? Is it a state church? No way, Jose. It's afflicted from all perspectives. It's crushed.
I accept that.
Beaten up. And that is one of the strongest churches. Despite the fact it's weak in human eyes, nothing in human eyes, that is probably one of the strongest churches in modern history because of what they've been through.
Chinese,
and they are weak in the vertical. They are weak by all accounts.
Chinese government is very I wouldn't use the word clever, but they're very aware of the situation. They are facing insurrections in the north, in the Muslim state. Islam is not free in China.
Of course not.
Christianity is.
No, it's not.
The church is,
that's not true. I'm sorry, mate. That's absolute bunkum.
Okay.
The Three Cells, if you talk about the Three Cells Church, which, that's absolute bunkum. That's a state...
It's true. Can I say why it's true? Last week I was here and I was talking to an English guy, a white English guy, about Christianity. And at the end I was doing chit-chat with him. I said, and where are you from? Expecting him to say, Paddington. Oh, I live in China, he said. Ah, really? Yes, he did. Now, he'd been in China for 15 years. A young guy, seemingly a young guy. Now, he's he didn't say which city, he didn't tell me which city, but he assures me it's one of the big cities in China. He lives there, he's a Christian, and he networks with other Christians. And what he told me was this, fascinating. I asked him, wow, what's it like being a Christian in China? You know, I asked about the official church, the Catholic church, What he said was, he's not part of the official church, he's part of the unofficial church. And yes, the authorities, he says, know what's going on with him, but they don't touch him.
Christianity is a passive faith.
They meet each other's houses, they worship, they're not officially registered, the police know exactly what's going on, but they do not molest them. And I said, why is that? But he said, there's no reason for them to. We're not causing any trouble.
Exactly.
So
it's a passive faith.
When you say they're not persecuted,
it has become passive. It has become increasingly passive.
And that's what it should be.
In the recent century.
Christians should not be in the army. Christians should not be fighting for government.
I understand
we should not be doing that.
This is a view among Christians, which is quite significant. It's quite dominant. I accept that. You know, pacifism has been the fashion recently in Christianity. Okay. This is the point I'm making. My point is this point.
Your name's George W. Bush. It's not or Tony Blair.
But they're not Christians. They're not Christians. They're not true Christians. They're not true Christians.
Hang on. It's not for us or me, even me as a Christian, to go say they're not Christians. Christians make mistakes. Christians do bad things.
But these are drastic mistakes. Every time Christians make mistakes, we're talking about genocide. We're talking about millions of people dying.
Oops, that's a mistake. You might go to war with another country and kill 500,000 Iraqis. That's not a mistake.
That's very true.
It's called a war crime.
That's very true indeed.
So the point is, Christianity has been evolving with the weather. As the weather changes, the Christian view changes. As the political climate changes, the Christian view changes. Before liberalism or other philosophical traditions, we had scholasticism, right? Christians had no problem with it. They adopted it. Okay.
Just very quickly, I don't want to interrupt. I wanted to go back to what Paul was saying. I mean, it's quite interesting. You got a namesake called Paul Merson. He did a really funny, great documentary travelling around China and so on and so forth. And that was quite a good example. He went to a nice open, supposedly evangelical church, just like America. They almost open with American accents there, and that was openly sort of praising God, doing sort of normal Christian things, basically, in the best commas. They weren't being persecuted. All was hunky-dory. Go to a little distant house church around the corner, inverted commas. Different atmosphere. Didn't bring his interpreter with him because it might endanger her. Very sort of different atmosphere. So there's two faces to China. You've got the information you show where they have a Christian who say, everything's hunky-dory, big church and big services and all is good. And I believe you. I think that probably goes on.
This guy was the state. This guy was specifically the unofficial church he was talking about. He wasn't the one that, and the police know about it, but don't molest them. Everyone just gets. The great thing in China apparently is everyone gets along. You don't needlessly go out and persecute people unless there's a reason.
Were there a lot of expats on this unofficial church?
I didn't know details.
If there are, then it's probably going to be quite.
I think the issue is he was in a very big city.
Yes.
So you're talking about probably 10 million people. Who knows? 10 million people or more. The police are not. They're not a totalitarian thing. They will literally camp down on everything. They let you get on as long as you don't cause trouble, and that's what he wasn't causing any trouble.
And then it's always the definition of what trouble is. That's where I
simply praying together, worshipping Jesus, and all that stuff. It's not causing.
Sorry. I get distracted so easily. Sorry. Evangelising as well, for instance.
I don't know. I didn't know that.
Because that's often what you'll find is you have these churches, superficially evangelical. They sing the right songs.
Depends how you evangelise.
Of course.
If you do it a bit of J. Smith style, that's going to piss off the most tolerant ruler in history. Because that's a careful way of doing it. But if you do it subtly, you know, hey, have you heard about whatever, then I don't see
French evangelism, tea and coffee type of thing, whatever they have.
That's how Christianity spread.
It spread through all ways. It's through Christian polemics, like Paul's quite sort of polemical, using an example of J. Smith, he's quite polemical. Then you have the much quieter approaches, where sort of which Paul would approve of, and we all approve of it as well, which is sort of nicer in inverted commas, tea and sort of biscuits.
It's got to be tea and biscuits.
Oh yes, of course.
We just over every time.
The lies of J. Smith come from Paul.
Let's not talk about J. Smith. I agree with everything J. Smith says, by the way, but we're not really talking about.
You don't think he lies? Honestly,
definitely not. And we're not talking about that. We're talking about.
He makes Satan believe J. Smith. He really does.
Guys,
I don't know how Satan puts up with him.
Christian Biles,
how can you, being such a nice guy, not see his lies? It's very difficult for me to believe.
Well, and then first of all, I'd have to bloody disagree with you there. And also, we've got off topic. We're talking about
okay.
Let J. Smith answer for himself. He's a big boy. He can answer for himself.
Do you want to go and watch some of the videos?
I do watch videos, and I cheerlead as well.
Have you seen those videos where he says, "Where is the Bible corrupted?" And then
I've read all of them. I've watched them all.
It is
I've watched them all.
Okay.
I've seen.
And you don't think he lies?
No. And are you even going to call
so
it?
What would you call that? Christian Taqiyya?
Not at all. He's not lying. You've gone off topic as well. You've gone very off topic. Let's go back to what we talked about before.
But how would you explain? I mean, just out of curiosity, how would you explain that? In one place he's saying, "Where is the Bible corrupted?" It is corrupted nowhere. And then in the next clip he's saying it is corrupted in so and so place.
Because he's talking about changes. There's about 40 odd verses in the Bible which are not found in the earliest texts. But the text is receptive.
No, but he's categorically saying no corruption.
Well,
and then in the next clip,
what I should do is actually ask him directly. Okay. Because I can't really answer everything he says. All I can say is I'm a fellow conspirator with him basically. So if he's a liar, I'm a liar too. So if he's a liar, I'm a liar too. Because I'm a co-conspirator. I don't think I don't think I am a liar. That's for God to judge.
No, I don't think you're a liar. I don't think.
Let's leave that for God to judge.
Nice talking.
So, God bless you. Yeah.
Okay. Continue.